several neighborhoods throughout Brooklyn have seen an increase in violent crime and illegal substance trafficking over the course of the last few weeks.
So the essence of the story we're trying to tell is essentially that Miles Morales is a character very much like the original Peter Parker Spider-Man, but he has several key differences, mainly his background and where he's from, and how that is more a reflection of today's modern teenager than the 1960s version of Peter Parker was. We want to tell the story of a mixed-race kid who's living in Brooklyn, who comes upon himself to realize that he has the responsibility to help and save people. When Spider-Man was announced that he was coming back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I got very excited as a total dork of this idea that we could reinvent Spider-Man to be the Miles Morales character.
If a kid from Brooklyn was going to be the next Spider-Man, maybe he would be half black, half Hispanic. And it kind of made sense, and it was a really great story, and it was something that we thought that would really resonate with people. So we created a Miles Morales fan film.
What we were looking for in the actors was people that had a definite personality, especially for Miles, because I didn't want to cast a character that was just a clone of Peter Parker. And I think Demetrius has this really great presence on camera where he's both likable and you can tell he's a little bit nervous, and all that shows through his emotion and screen presence.
I'm not made for this, you know? And I didn't ask for it.
We were worried about casting Oliver. It needs to be someone like very physically intimidating and kind of a B-rated supervillain, but he's a supervillain nonetheless. So he had to have like this big physical presence. As soon as Pat walked in the room, we're like, all right, this is the guy. The best part of working with Jeff is you don't just get Jeff, but we also got the misfits of mayhem. He brought all of our henchmen. We didn't have to do any casting there. We got great stunt performers, but they also could sell their roles as the henchmen of the Kangaroo. It was great.
We wanted to create a look for this film that felt both comic booky, but also felt like it somehow could still exist in the real world. We focused on a lot of very larger than life elements, such as the warehouse is a very bold visual element of a fan spinning constantly.
From the time we first walked into the warehouse, it was kind of an empty slate. It's kind of your dream and your nightmare. It takes a lot of work and a really good talented crew to make something look that minimalist, but still have good reading. It was really a fantastic collaboration.
We were doing this out of pocket, so we didn't have a set carpenter, and my wife and I had to go to Home Depot and figure out how to build these big crates that nobody was going to die by jumping on. And we just all kind of did a lot of collective, well, who can do what? Let's get it done. Betsy had all these bags that she was able to fill with trash, and she had worked out how to decorate this whole room, which she never got a chance to see before we came on set, but she had the strategy to fit any room while simultaneously not endangering any of our stunt performers.
So Ivan's given me some really cool challenges. He wanted a fan gag, which is what we call a lighting setup, and I think it looks pretty good. I get my enjoyment why I'm a gaffer is because I get to do stuff like that. I get to be creative.
We're shooting with the Sony FS7s, and they allow us to do a little bit of the high-speed shots, which we'll be using quite a bit in here. We're also using a jib and a dolly and a lot of handheld work, which will really give a lot of energy to the film, hopefully.
Well, as the artistic director, I really ask a lot of questions. Who's working on different wardrobes or props, makeup, keeping an eye on the camera and seeing what's in the shot and making sure there's continuity, things of that nature.
So this was my first big project playing with the Ronin gimbal. We knew we wanted to use it in a long fight sequence, kind of to wrap 180 degrees around a moving fight, and timing and choreography is a huge deal. But trying to do a wind sprint and keep pace with the fighters and keep your eye on the viewfinder and the AC trying to keep focus. If things are off by a fraction of a second or two, your camera's not in line, and you can see that, hey, stunt guys aren't really punching each other in the face.
The hardest thing, I would say, the fight scenes, doing the entire fight scene all in one motion. Because as soon as you mess up once, you got to do it all over again. So that's pretty tough.
Jeff seems to be able to do all sorts of crazy things, and he sat down with us and he's like, oh yeah, we're going to do this. We'll punch this guy and he'll fly through the air, and we'll do this wire gag, and Spider-Man will jump up on the ceiling. Him and David kind of teamed up and they choreographed and arranged the whole fight, and Jeff worked out the stunts and David worked out the fight parts. And everything that we thought we were going to have to animate, we were able to do in a practical sense.
The stunt team that I brought with me is a group of people I've been working with for about the last year and a half. We call ourselves Misfits of Mayhem, just to give us a name. But they're a great group of people. They're very talented, and that's why I like working with them.
The stunt coordinator for the entire project is fantastic. He's pretty much a DP for fight scenes. The stunt team rehearsed for about 6 weeks, on and off, a lot of it on their own, and I peeked in and just figured out what the vague blocking of everything was going to be, where their positions were, and as they refined the stunts, we were able to refine the camera moves, and then they tightened up the sequence so it's maybe not fight realistic, but definitely camera realistic.
By far, the biggest challenge was when I'm actually on the wall, and they put on this suit under my clothes, and then the guys pull you up, and as I'm on the wall, I'm delivering my lines, but I have to pretend as though it wasn't painful. One of the challenges that we had in this old building was what's called a jerkback. So we ended up doing what's called an old-fashioned pull, in which we rig Patrick up in a harness and pull him back through the air. And Patrick did real good. He did a good job. We ended up pulling him back, I'd probably say at least a good 12 times.
We're constructing effects that haven't really existed before on screen. So for hand charge, we had to decide what that's going to look like, what it looks like when Venom stings the bad guy at the end. We had to essentially come up with our own idea of how Miles' effects and powers should formulate on screen. For Lana or Bombshell's hand charge, I ended up using X particles in Cinema 4D and then compositing that in layers in After Effects. For the bullet charge shot, I commissioned help of Dave Glanz to create the bullet shot in Cinema 4D, bringing that into After Effects, warping the actual footage with a luminance key.
We tried to do as many of the effects in this movie practically, but we shot it in Frederick, Maryland, and we wanted it to look like New York. So at the end of the movie, there's this great shot where Joe rotates around Miles, and we had to add New York City into that skyline. So Chad, the producer, actually created a great Stark Tower, and we put that in an image of New York, and we had to track the clouds to stabilize that image onto our scene. In the end, I think we ended up with a really nice shot where hopefully you're looking at the hero and not the skyline, but I think it really adds a lot to the end of the film.
So you'll recall the one of the scenes you just saw where the gentleman gets flipped over on top of a crate. We didn't want to have him break a real crate or hurt him in any way, so that sound that you hear is not the actual sound that was recorded on set. What you hear is a sample of some wood breaking, you hear some low-end sweetener in there, you hear many different other things that are combined to make the sound that you hear.
Our composer was able to plan things out and hit exactly the right feel that Ivan was looking for, and I loved it. Hopefully when fans watch that moment and Miles just beat everybody up and he gets down in his crouch and the camera dollies in, you'll get the same chills I do. I'm very fortunate that I know a lot of very talented people that all, for some reason, have no problem giving up their weekends to come out and make movies. I don't know exactly how many hours it was, but there was thousands of man hours put into this film purely because we thought it was a great story and we wanted people to watch it.